Welcome to the Olympus Wealth Strategies Podcast, where we take your finances to great heights. I'm your podcast host, John Sidery, and typically we talk about different specific financial topics to help enlighten our listeners. But today we're going to take a pause on some X's and O's because while all of that is very beneficial, none of it would be possible without the extreme sacrifice that servicemen and women make on our behalf. With me today in this special episode in recognition of Memorial Day, I've got I'm very thankful to have a great friend, but more blessed to call him my family, Major Michael Diaz, aka Michael. Quick background on Michael. I typically let our podcast guests introduce themselves, but Michael's extremely humble, so he wouldn't probably do himself justice. So I'm going to give a quick background on him. So Major Diaz was born in Mexico City, immigrated to East Los Angeles at the age of 11. He began his military career in 2003, shortly after the greatest war on terrorism began, by enlisting in the United States Marine Corps as an infantryman. In 2010, he earned his commission as a second lieutenant in the General Corps after graduating Officer Candidate School in Fort Benning, Georgia. Over the course of his career, Major Diaz held a wide range of leadership and administrative positions across the United States. His assignments included a battalion officer in charge, a division strength manager of a cavalry division, as well as an administrative officer and a company commander for the Ventura, California recruiting company station. He concluded his military career as an operations officer in the Los Angeles Strategic Officer Recruitment Detachment. Some highlights that speak to his very decorated 22-year military service career was multiple combat deployments, those being Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Inherent Resolve. Some of his awards include, but are certainly not limited to, his Bronze Star, several Meritorious Service Medals, Army Commendation Medal, and Achievement Medals, where he received multiple awards, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Marine Corps Combat Action Ribbons, Good Conduct Medals, and an Overseas Service Ribbon multiple times over. Major Diaz just recently, and happy to celebrate him, just retired from the United States Army last month after, like I said, more than 2 decades of a very distinguished and honorable career. He's also married to a family member of ours, Aaron, and together they have four children, 3 daughters and a son. And now Michael is starting a new chapter in his life. So, Michael, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining, and very grateful to have you on.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the invitation once again. I'm just very humbled to be part of this and have this conversation with you. I think I really like the opening that you had, when it comes to the things that we do every day, right? When it comes to our finances and the things that matter, but also to recognize a lot of those things wouldn't be possible without the sacrifices of many of the men and women that I serve with. So I'm glad that you're doing this. I think it really speaks very highly of your character and your priorities. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I appreciate you joining. So even though I gave a little bit of background on you, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit of your own personal journey, from whether it be from your early childhood in Mexico, immigrating over to California, and then ultimately what I think a lot of our listeners who either also have had military service or maybe are considering military service, kind of what sparked you and inspired you to ultimately enlist in the Marine Corps?
Thank you. It's I'll try to do this to the best of my recollections. I'm a firm believer that sometimes when we tell our own stories, we either make ourselves the hero or the villain of our stories, or the victim. So I'm trying to be as fair as I can and the best of my recollections. Yes, I was born in Mexico. I consider my story very unique. I don't think it's like the typical immigrant story. I came here to Los Angeles when I was about 11 years old with my mother, and my younger brother. My mom made my stepdad, and we combined families, so we were a blended family from the get-go. Military service was never really like in my plans initially. And I think a lot of it has to go back to the immigrant culture, especially being from Mexico. My mom and my dad in particular, they were very happy the way that my life was going. I was a fairly good student in high school. I also practiced multiple sports. I did track and field, soccer, cross country, and I actually did boxing for a few years. So to my parents, like I said, being immigrants, and even myself being first generation, not even first generation, because I wasn't born here, I was an immigrant myself. For my family, military service just didn't seem like the right pathway. I know when I was a senior in high school, I talked to the Navy and I talked to the Marine Corps. And really what sold me to the Marine Corps was the uniform. When I saw the uniform, I'm like, oh, yes, this is where I want to be. And when I started talking to the Marines, a lot of people get shied away by how aggressive Marines communicate and also how they carry themselves. But I think because I already had a good foundation from playing so many sports and also from my family and practicing boxing, I was pretty confident. So when I met the Marine Corps recruiter, I was like, yes, like, this is where I want to be. These guys are the best. And we're going to go and we're going to kick some doors and we're going to be doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Initially, I wasn't able to join. The reason why is because my family, they had put in my paperwork to become a resident. But the first years, they had to put you through a work permit. And although I was here legally, I was not able to join the armed services. So I started going to college, but that idea was still in the back of my head. I was like, man, I really want to serve. I really want to do my part. I think I always had this very deep sense of gratitude for everything this country did for me and for my family and all the opportunities that we were given. So serving just seemed like the natural next step to me. I remember I brought that idea to my parents again when I was already 2 years into community college. And my mom was like, no, why do you want to do this? My stepdad, just for them not knowing anything about military service, they just thought it was not the right fit for me. And I think I remember when 9/11 happened. I mean, just even thinking about it kind of gives me the chills because that event basically was the single event that through my whole career, I felt the repercussions of that because I joined like a year later into the Marine Corps, knowing that I was joining during a time of war, knowing that I was joining and giving up pausing my college education at that time, and also doing it against my parents' wishes. In addition to that, I knew that there was a lot of risk, but I was younger, so rather than being anxious, I was excited about it. I had this like sense of confidence and I had this sense of everything was going great. And things were going great for me at that time. At that time, I met my first wife, Crystal. And she was just she is an amazing person. And she was pregnant with my first daughter, Kirsten. And I had just joined the Marine Corps. And I figured, like, you know what, this is just so perfect now. I'm going to get to do something that I always wanted to do, which is serve my country now. I have a baby on the way. I'm newlywed. I mean, it was kind of like, to me at that time, I saw it like an American triumph. Like, it was like my own Camelot in a way, right? I'm getting things done, and I'm gonna secure benefits, and I'm gonna secure a steady income for my new family. It was
You're living the American dream.
I really felt like I was, I'm married to a beautiful woman. I had a baby on the way. I was on a way to becoming a Marine. And when I got to Marine Corps boot camp, wow, was that a quick wake up call, to say the least. So it was very difficult. Not in the physical sense. I mean, I've always been an athlete, so that wasn't. I mean, it was challenging to say the least, but it was something that I could navigate much easier. But the process of indoctrination that the Marine Corps has perfected for the last 250 years is very unique. And it's one of those process that starts from boot camp. And I remember that. I mean, the best way to describe this, John, is like I drank the Kool-Aid 100%. I was like, I'm all about it. Like, I love the Marine Corps. This is great. I'm all about the discipline. I'm all about being loud. I'm all about the aggressiveness. Yeah, hoorah, let's do this. So I successfully completed Marine Corps boot camp, and I actually got promoted to private first class. I was not the honor grad, but I think I was like the second or third runner-up. So they did promote me to private first class. So that was my very first promotion within like less than 3 months in the Marine Corps. After that, when I went to the School of Infantry, I really realized right there why the Marine Corps has perfected its craft as one of the finest fighting forces, or the finest fighting force the world has ever seen. Because some of the stuff that I did when I was in SOI, and subsequently after, when I went to the fleet, to the Marine Corps fleet, the infantry, I was doing stuff that I didn't think I was ever capable of doing. And I was doing it with nothing but a bunch of monsters, to say the least. Like these guys were serious business. And the good thing that the Marine Corps does that I gotta say is very unique from any of the other branches is that the Marine Corps, every Marine is a protector of the Marine Corps culture. So if you cannot hack it for whatever reason, that they're pretty good about weeding you out. And they do it, at least, remember, I joined at the turn of the century in 2003, so things were a little bit different. I'm sure they have changed for the better, I'm assuming, in certain concepts. But when I came in, it was like you were talking about drill instructors that serve in Desert Storm, like some hardcore, like charging veterans that were preparing us for combat. And that was one of the things. I came to the Marine Corps and I graduated from boot camp. I graduated from School of Infantry. I thought I knew it all. And as soon as I came in to my very first duty station in the Marine Corps, which was in Camp Pendleton with 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, the Fighting 5th, I was notified that I was leaving to Iraq within 6 weeks. So here I was from civilian life and ready to go to the combat zone in less than 6 months. And my daughter at that time, Kirsten, was not born yet. So I was going to leave my new bride to have her kid by herself. Fortunately, things didn't work out like that. We got a little bit of extension. So I was able to be here when my daughter was born. But I got deployed to Iraq probably about 4 weeks after Kirsten was born. But even so, when I remember when I was leaving, I had a very tough conversation that I'm sure a lot of servicemen have with their spouses when they leave. I had a conversation with Crystal, and I just wanted to tell her, like how happy I was with her, with the baby, how proud I was of what I was doing. And I even apologized to her, I remember. And it was because I told her, you know what, Crystal, I want to apologize to you because I might not come back, I told her. But if I don't, I want you to know the reason why it's not is because I'm going to do whatever I need to do to maintain my honor and the honor of the Marine Corps. Because that's how deep I was into the culture. And Crystal was very, very proud, and she was also very supportive. She's like, hey, Michael, like, I know you won't do anything less than that. So although the circumstances were changing, they were becoming more challenging, I was still very proud and very, very, very happy with what I was doing. And then I found myself in Iraq in the
height of the war in 2003, right? 2003, 2004.
It was funny because I remember during that time we were watching CNN, and everybody was putting a lot of attention to Fallujah, because Fallujah was like the hot spot, where the elections were happening. I was stationed in Ramadi, but Ramadi was such a key strategic point because most of the insurgents and the foreign war fighters, in order to get to Baghdad or to get to Fallujah, they had to come through Ramadi. So my job at that time, during that deployment, I was part of the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force. So every time I went out of the wire was either to engage in direct combat or to secure a location after a firefight already took place. So my time there was just like constant maneuvering and engaging the enemy in multiple times. But like I said, I was younger, so my view of things were a lot different. I just thought everything was cool. I thought it was exciting. I remember like the first time we had to engage the enemy was during the nighttime, and I saw the rounds, and to me it looked like a Star Wars movie. I was like, wow, look at this. This is great. Now that I look back and like, man, like I could die. This is like some serious business, right? But at that time I was just confident because I knew that I had good training. I was very confident with my own abilities. And also, once again, I knew that I was to my left and my right. They were nothing but like a bunch of monsters too, like hardcore Marines, especially being in 2nd Battalion Field Marines. 2-5 is distinguished as the most condecorated Marine Corps unit, and they'll let you know it right away. So if you're going to be part of it, there was a price to pay, right? In addition to the everyday things that a rifleman or an infantryman has to do, you have to really absorb and believe and be part of the culture there. And I think once we got to be deployed, that became more evident. And it was great. I mean, I was coming home. I was telling my wife and my parents not to worry, that I was fine. And up to that time, I used to manage some of the stress of combat just with humor and and just talking trash with the guys. I have a couple of funny stories. I remember, I don't know, I think I could say this now. I'm retired, so I'll say it. I remember one time I got in a lot of trouble. It was shortly after I got promoted to Lance Corporal, so that's NE3s. So I got another promotion. And I remember Staff Sergeant Garcia, my platoon sergeant. He's like, all right, Diaz, Keone, and Smith, you three being chosen to talk to the CNN reporters. And once again, like, I want you guys to be in your best behavior. Don't be cursing. Say that everything's great. And don't be, like, complaining, okay? All right, good to go. So we're doing the interview, and I remember the CNN reporter came, and he was talking to me. He's like, okay, so can you state your name and where you're from for the camera? And I was like, yes, of course. Lance Corporal Diaz from East Los Angeles, California, here in the province of Ramadi. Okay, Lance Corporal Diaz, we know the kind of job that you guys do right here. And you guys just came from an engagement during the battle. Were you ever afraid? And I looked straight into the camera and say, afraid? Hell yeah, I was afraid. I was afraid one of those sons of bitches was going to get away, but they didn't. So I saw Staff Sergeant Garcia running towards me like, cut, Diaz. What the fuck did I tell you? You're not supposed to be saying that. So I got in a lot of trouble, and I got like latrine duty for like a week for that. But I thought it was worth it.
From that early phase of your career and the first several years in the military, growing up in the Marine Corps and in the 2-5, what ultimately led to your transition, whether it was a pursuit from a military standpoint or maybe from a more family standpoint, to go from the Marine Corps ultimately to the Army to get your commission?
Well, there was a tragedy that happened to my family when I was in Iraq during that time. I was at about month 3 or 4 of my deployment, and I remember my first sergeant came and said, "Hey, Diaz, the company commander and the chaplain want to talk to you." My first reaction thought that I got in trouble, that I did something. In the back of my head, I was 23 years old at that time. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I not do? I didn't know what it was about because I never really interacted with my commander. I knew who he was, but I never had a conversation with him. There was no need for me to. So I went up to the company office, and not only was my company commander and the chaplain there, but my battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel. And I was like, whoa, what did I do? They're gonna court-martial me or what? I really didn't know what was happening. And I got some horrible news. So I was informed then that my daughter, Kirsten, was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy type 1. So when they gave me those news, I didn't know what that meant. So the chaplain said, you need to sit down, son. And the captain said, you need to sit down, Diaz. This is what's happening. He goes, your daughter has SMA type 1, also known as the Hoffman disease, which what causes this illness or it's a genetic illness that kills your muscle cells. Her life expectancy from that point was between 6 months to 2 years. There has never been any cases that lived past maybe 2 to 3 years old. So they told me, we're going to have to get you out of Iraq, Diaz. And I mean, basically, in a few words, so you could be with your daughter and spend some time with her before she dies. And that was just heartbreaking for me in more ways than one. I was just like, I felt like I was leaving my team behind, but at the same time, I couldn't think straight because, I mean, as a parent, I don't think of anything more devastating than to be informed, especially in a combat zone, that your only child was dying. So I left Iraq. I came back. I met Crystal at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, and they explained to me more in detail what her diagnosis was and what her options were, which there were not many. As a result of that, I had to fight to stay in the Marine Corps because they figured, like, you know what, this is a very serious family case, Diaz, so you probably should be with your family. But I still wanted to be a Marine. I still wanted to do my duty. So what they ended up doing is that they transferred me to be part of the instructor staff. So basically what I did as an experienced infantryman at that time, that I would train the reservists in the area. And it was a great job. It was very rewarding. But at that time, I met a very close friend and mentor of mine, Sergeant Villegas. And, you know, in one day we were out having a few drinks, and we're having like a heart-to-heart conversation. And he spoke to me. He's like, listen, Diaz, I'm going to give you 2 options, brother. Option number 1, he said, you could get out of the Marine Corps and you could just become a drunk and don't care. And nobody's going to say nothing to you because you've gone through so much stuff, not just in combat, but now with your daughter, that everybody's going to understand. You're going to get a pass. You're going to, like, nobody's going to look down upon you, brother. He's like, or I'll give you option number 2, Diaz. It was almost like a Matrix moment, right? Which pill you're going to take? He's like, you just fucking keep driving on. You listen to what I tell you, and you're going to become a sergeant in 4 years, man. Which, for all the Marines out there listening to this, you guys know how difficult that is. And he's like, and you're going to do that, Diaz. In addition to that, I want you to go back to school. I want you to get your associate's degree. And I want you to get your bachelor's degree. Yes, that way, in case you do leave the Marine Corps, you have something to go with. So I opted for option number 2, and it was very difficult because throughout the whole time, as me serving as a full-time active duty Marine and pursuing promotions and pursuing school, I was still taking my daughter back and forth to hospital trips and things like that. So it was a very dark time in my life. Because ultimately, I think it caused my marriage with Crystal. Crystal's a wonderful, beautiful person, and up to today, we're still very close, and I think we always will be because of that. But unfortunately, I think the circumstances with our daughter, you know, some people, it brings them closer. Some people, it basically, like, takes them apart, and I think for us, it was the latter. We became really good at taking care of our daughter, but not so much as a couple.
And I think it's worth noting for the podcast that Kirsten just celebrated her 21st birthday.
Yes, exactly. So we'll get to that, but yes, but it was very challenging. It was very, very challenging. So what I did is that I just kind of like threw myself 100% into my career. Not only was I promoted to sergeant and also earned my associate's and my bachelor's degree, but I actually got promoted to staff sergeant in 5.5 years, which is very difficult to do. So at that point, because I knew that there was 2 things. Number one, that I was good at being a Marine. I was good at being a service person. I was good at my job. I was dedicated. I was motivated. And in addition to that, because I needed the benefits for Kirsten, I decided at that point, you know what, I'm here for the long haul. This is what I'm gonna do. So what I did is at that time, because I had my bachelor's degree, and also I was able to obtain my citizenship, because throughout this whole time I was serving as a permanent resident in the Marine Corps. My friend Sergeant Villegas, he's like, you know what, Diaz, you're too good for this, man. Like, if you really care about Marines, you need to be an officer. That's how you're really gonna impact the policy, how you're really gonna be able to take care of them, man. And you have all the tools, you know, you're a good leader, you could do this, you really care. So that's what I did. I put in a packet to attend Officer Candidate School with the Marine Corps in Quantico. My packet was reviewed, was endorsed, and was approved. However, the Marine Corps at that time, I submitted my packet sometime in March, and my OCS day was not until January the following year. But at the same time that I'm talking about this happened in 2009, and it was right at the spike of the war now in Afghanistan. And the recruiter told me, well, the HR personnel right there said, you know, because you already have a pre-approved packet, do you mind if we share it with other branches? Because, you know, we need officers in all branches. And I was like, no, hell no, I'm not going anywhere. Marine Corps, hoorah. She's like, no, think about it. And I said, okay, fine, do it. And literally, John, within maybe 2 weeks after an Army recruiter contacted me and said, you know what, we looked at your packet, we reviewed it, you know, you did a lot of great things, and you're highly decorated for my short time in the military. And they say, you know what, how would you like to be an Army officer? I say, nope, I'm a Marine. And one thing about Marines,
Don't want to give up your uniform.
Yeah, no, not only that, but, you know, in the Marine Corps, they teach us, besides like fighting and being confident and being great, like they teach us that going to the Army is like the ultimate sin. Like, you don't do that, you know. It's almost like if you play for the Lakers and now you want to go play for the Celtics, like that's a no-go, right? You can't do that. But at first I wasn't even like considering. I go, no, you know what, I'm fine. I could stand another 10 months here doing my job as a staff sergeant, and I just go and do it when I need to. And like I said, listen, if you take this, we could have, you know, CS in 3 months at Fort Benning, Georgia. Wow, I was like, that's really life changing. I go, that could be good. So when I talked to my friend, we call him a friend now because we were both sergeants now, to Sergeant Villegas, and he said, you know what, Diaz, the Marine Corps were infamous for screwing you over, man. And 10 months is a long time. Not only that, he's like, but you're good at your job. They might not let you go, man. So if the Army's saying that you could do this, do it. And it was a very challenging time in my life, because at that time I was going through my divorce with Crystal, but it was also now going through a separation from the Marine Corps. So two of the most important things in my life, you know, my family and now the Marine Corps, were about to be permanently changed. And I went through a very challenging time, and it was very, very, very difficult. Not only that, but because my transfer was going to go straight from active duty in the Marine Corps to OCS with the Army, I basically they just signed my paper and, okay, I'll see you later. And that time, it was very challenging for me, because this was an organization that I have given so much to, and I was just living with a handshake, like, okay, good luck. And I almost feel like I was being like exiled out of the Marine Corps. I was like, man, like, what am I doing? Is this the right move? So I took a leap of faith, and I found myself in 2010 in Fort Benning, Georgia, at the Officer Candidate School. And the funny thing is that I thought that I was there because, oh my God, I must be so special. There's something special about me that they really want me. So when I get there was like 3 other Marines that were selected too, and like 2 Navy guys and 1 Air Force. Like, hey, what the hell? I thought this was very exclusive. They're like, well, it is. And it is. I guess you should consider it an honor that they looked at your packet when you were outside the branch. But I found out that, hey, man, like, you're not that special. There's other people just as good and as qualified as you. And that was the one thing that OCS taught me when I got there. I was just very amazed and a little bit intimidated, John, because some of the candidates there, they were like highly condecorated soldiers, right? Talking about some of them were rangers, some of them were even, I think, like either they completed or they were in the process of complete the initial steps to become like SF guys, special forces. Not only that, but some of the civilians that applied got more accepted to OCS came from some very prestigious colleges and universities, right? So I knew then that I was now competing with a different type of monster, right? People that were very prepared, very experienced, and in a lot of cases, I'll say like intellectually a step or two ahead of me. But in a typical Marine Corps way, I saw that and I say, okay, you know what? This is it. Like you just gotta do it. Like I cannot fail at this. I mean, I was recently divorced. I couldn't go back to the Marine Corps, and I knew that I had 12 weeks to either pass OCS or be in the street. There was no going back for me. And I approached that with the same passion and with the same passion and the same pride that I try to do everything. And I did pretty good in OCS. I mean, I was even selected as the company first sergeant for like the last month, and I mean, I did pretty good. And that's when I earned my commission as a second lieutenant, an officer. And the funny thing about that is the moment that I did that and I got my commissioning certificate signed by, I think it was President Obama at that time. I went and I took a picture of it and I sent it to my friend, Sergeant Villegas. And he was like, man, I'm just like so proud of you, bro. He's like, you know what? Like, they say that the pupil will surpass the teacher. You have done that, bro. Like, you're doing great. But not only that, but that motivated Villegas so much. He's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm putting an officer packet too. And he did, but he ended up going to the Marine Corps one in Quantico. And he just recently retired about 2 years ago as a captain himself too. So I was glad that he ended up doing that too because of the caliber of a leader that he is and that he was for the Marine Corps. And yeah, so that's how I made that switch to becoming an officer in the Army.
Let's talk a moment because a lot of listeners are in leadership positions, whether that is owners of companies, whether that is managers at different companies. How did your leadership style change being a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps as a sergeant and staff sergeant, ultimately to being in charge of other men as the officer in charge? How did if anything, maybe it didn't change very much, but how did your leadership style morph over that time?
No, it changed completely, John. And the reason why is because I was able to observe some officers that were prior enlisted, but they still either represent or try to implement some of those leadership traits as officers now. And I guess like in the business world, it's almost like if you were, I don't know, if you were like a manager and all of a sudden you move to a VP spot. Yes, like the management portion is going to give you the experience to know how things are done, but you have to navigate things differently now, right? Almost like Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So for me, I guess it came to the understanding of two things. Number one, that yes, I was a Marine, and no matter how much I loved it, I'm now an Army officer. So that was something that I internally did, which I never really told people that I was in the Marines before. And the reason why is because one of my friends told me, you know what, Diaz, when people do that, it's almost like you having a new wife and all you do is talk about the ex-wife. So that's kind of how it is right here. You're an Army officer, but if all you do is talk about the Marine Corps and how great it was when you were a sergeant. But not only that, but when it comes to soldiers, I believe that soldiers, they want to be, they want an example to follow in their officers. And as such, you owe it to them and you owe it to the officer corps to present yourself at that level now, because you have earned it, regardless whether you came from the academy at West Point or from an ROTC program or from OCS, at the end of the day, you're being compensated and you're given the privilege of being a military officer, and you are expected to perform at that level. I think for everybody out there that, I'm pretty sure all the leaders out there, whether it's at companies or corporations, they're at that position because they have earned it. And it's always good to look back at what got us there. But the main key, or the thing that I learned in my career, is that you can never be satisfied when it comes to learning. You have to continuously find ways to seek self-improvement. I remember reading this email that was sent by our former Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, and he sent it to all the officers of all branches. And when I was reading it, he said, "Gentlemen, you are in the business where you don't have the luxury of not reading and learning, because lives depend on the decisions that you make." And General Mattis, in his infinite wisdoms, also mentioned that as officers, we are expected to know, and if we don't know, we need to find out. And that really resonated with me, that message. And I became obsessed with every job that I did, to always take with me the experiences from previous jobs and other positions, but always come with, number one, a sense of humbleness to know that I don't know everything, but also a sense of hunger to learn more about that position. And that's why throughout my career, I was put in many different positions that might not have been in my branch or in my specialty, but I was always able to thrive, because I knew that, hey, no matter what, there has to be a manual, there has to be a mentor, there has to be somebody who done this. I just got to figure out who that is or what that is and do my best at learning it, And I think for anybody that is out there listening to this, you might have started your business in a complete different industry, but you could always recreate yourself, because at the end of the day, you have that foundation that took you to that place in the first place. Everything else, no matter which arena they put you, you're going to be good as long as you keep the foundation and the basics, straight. At least for me, that's what served me the best in my military career.
Well, talking about when you mentioned having the responsibility for others, right? And for all those in different leadership positions, whether it's as serious as the livelihoods of the people that you were in charge of, or as everyday managers or owner operators that are in charge of the welfare of their employees. I do want to share about a success story of yours that, even through 22 years, you're the recipient of a Bronze Star. And so can you tell us ultimately kind of the high level story behind that?
Yes. So I was very blessed and very fortunate to receive a Bronze Star in my last deployment in 2015 in Iraq. There's certain stuff that I cannot share due to DoD policies, but I could tell you that I think ultimately, one thing I could tell you is this: I wasn't the only one. There was about 10 Bronze Stars given for that particular operation, and every single person, I think there was people more deserving than me that received them. And the thing about it, I always talk to my wife about this to her, and I said, when I was with that team in Iraq in 2015, it really brought the best of me. And the reason why is because every single individual that was there, we were in charge of maintaining and defending a very small outpost. And every single person there knew their job. We will motivate each other, we will challenge each other, we will keep each other accountable, because we knew that there was no help. We knew that there was nobody else that was going to come and relieve us, save us, or do our jobs. And it was a constant grind that came from the bottom down, or Lieutenant Colonel, at that time was Lieutenant Colonel R.G. Garcia. Now he's Brigadier General Garcia, and he's the superintendent at West Point, one of my great mentors. He was our leader, and he really epitomizes what a great tactician and military leader is. I was very blessed to be under his guidance that time. And I think that when the time came for us to perform in that particular incident, everyone did, because number one, his example, his guidance, and also the trust that he had in every single one of us that we were going to do the right thing. So I think as leaders and as managers, that's the best thing we could do. We got to lead by example. We got to train our people. And when the time comes to perform, whether it's meeting the sales goal or meeting the deadline for the project, we need to have confidence that our people will be able to perform. And you as the leader, like it all starts with you, you know. And I think that is that is the best thing. I mean, I was blessed to get it. It has done a lot of great things for me in my life, besides a sense of pride and everything. But I think it came because I was surrounded by very, very incredible people, which a lot of them I'm still very close to. And like I said, I mean, for Colonel Garcia, I mean, the fact that he's a general officer now, that just kind of shows you the caliber of leader that he was. Not only a general officer, but he is the first Hispanic general officer, I believe, as the superintendent at West Point right now. So that really shows you like what he demanded and the kind of person that he was. Don't get me wrong; he was very tough working for him. It's not a pleasant experience, but it made me a lot better, not just as an officer, but I think overall as a person. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's a key takeaway that transitions to every aspect of business, which is as long as you provide the training and trust in your people to perform, let them perform, right? Because it seems that people who I've got a good friend who has a recruiting company and always is talking to people changing jobs. And a lot of it can be from either a lack of training or resources or micromanagement to not be able to truly show their skill set and perform. So I think that's a key takeaway. So Michael, let's pivot, because a big part of today's session is about Memorial Day. And while we're all blessed to have that day off of work, there's a reason for that. And so obviously it's Memorial Day is honoring about those who gave all. And is there someone whom you served with that you think about or reflect on every Memorial Day?
I do. I was very lucky that at least during combat, I lost one friend in 2003 in Iraq, Private Fuller. He was my rack mate in boot camp, and unfortunately, within 2 weeks that we landed in Iraq, he lost his life due to sniper fire. But I have lost more friends. I think either shortly after or during training exercises, unfortunately. So I do honor and I think about them all the time, because I think sometimes, and I don't want to get too dark right here or anything, but I reflected, for me, it's a reflection to honor their life and their sacrifice. But more importantly, it's a reminder, I think, for all of us that we are the United States is the most amazing place in the world. And I know people could argue that with me. They could say, you know what, no, we could work in certain political aspects. Yeah, I got it. But people who say that have never been in foreign land like I have. And I think the key thing right here is that there is a price to pay for that. That there is sacrifice that need to be made. So rather than get melancholic and sad, I celebrate their lives. I celebrate their sacrifice, because just like I told you at the beginning of this podcast, when I left to Iraq, I apologized to my wife at that time in case I couldn't make it. But I knew in my heart, if it happens, I'm going to do it with a smile. I'm going to do it with a sense of pride, with a sense of purpose. And I think every single one of my friends that made the ultimate sacrifice, either on combat or during training exercises, I'm pretty confident that they felt the same way. Because being in the military, regardless of your branch, gives you this sense of purpose, of confidence, and ultimately of us being grateful to even be in this opportunity in our life to be serving. A lot of times people tell me, John, like, hey, thank you for your service. I almost want to tell them, no, thank you for letting me serve. Thank you for letting somebody who was not even born in this country reach to such pinnacle in the military. Thank you for letting me protect the homeland that welcomed me, and thank you for providing this homeland for my children. And thank you for every blessing that I got, and
Well, Michael, you're a man, and I think everybody obviously in the family that knows you, a man of such honor and high character. So how did your military service shape your values? And even though you're only less than a couple months out of your military career, how do those values continue forward in your everyday life?
A lot of people, a lot of my friends, I've seen they struggle a lot transitioning out of the military. And I think the reason why is because people believe that without the rank, without the uniform, without the medals, it's almost like they lose their identity. I came to terms within myself when I got out that, although I'm not a major anymore, although I'm not going to be carrying my ribbons and my Brown Star and all of that with me wherever I go anymore, I'm still the same person. I'm still somebody that you could rely on. I'm still somebody that is dependable, somebody that is loyal, somebody that has a strong moral compass. And when I was reflecting on all that, John, I realized that, to put it in short terms for me, during my 22 years of service, John, I fought everybody that was to fight during those 22 years. I fought the Iraqi army in 2003, I fought the Taliban in 2010, and I fought ISIS in 2015. There was nobody left to fight. Maybe there is, but that's for young men out there, not for me. But I think ultimately, I don't consider myself a Marine, I don't consider myself a sergeant, I don't consider myself a major. I consider myself like patriot. A patriot that no matter what, no matter what the circumstances are, now I just have to take my talents and serve my community. I help people from all over the world. I did everything that I had to do. And now I want to serve my community, serve my family, and live my life in accordance to what the Almighty wants me to live it, I think.
Well, you've mentioned this a few different times, right? Obviously, there's a deep sense of pride of being an American and serving this country. And so, and obviously this country being the greatest nation in the world. Is that maybe a message from your time in uniform that you could probably make the case that in today's age, maybe not a lot of people take that very seriously and maybe take how wonderful it is over here for granted? Is that maybe one of the overarching things from what you've seen in your 22 years of military service, that to just be very grateful and have a sense of pride of this country?
I've seen it both ways, right? Because during my last 4 years, I was very honored that I was recruiting officers. So I recruited a lot of young men and women into the academy at West Point, into ROTC programs. So I got to see a lot of very patriotic young men and women out there. But I think for everybody that is even considering this path, whether it's enlisted officer or serving, I could tell you, and I know experiences vary, right? But I could tell you that it's going to make you a better person. I'm a firm believer that with competence, you will gain confidence. And for a lot of young men and women out there, if they feel that maybe they don't have a sense of purpose, or if they feel that what they do matters, I could guarantee them that a day in uniform, they will see the big spectrum of things. They will see that everything matters. And they will see and appreciate how beautiful, like you mentioned, John, this country is. From coast to coast, we have liberties and we have privileges and we have opportunities that we take for granted. And a lot of people from all over the world, that's why they want to come here, because they know that there's nothing like it in the world. There has never been anything like it in the world. And it's worth defending, and it's worth protecting, and it's worth dying for. And that's why we're celebrating Memorial Day, because of men men and women that understood that. They appreciate that, and they realize the value of our beautiful nation. If anybody's ever thinking about that, my recommendation to them would be like, you guys are not going to regret it. Whether you do 2 years, whether you do 4, or you decide to make a career out of it, I think it's going to improve every aspect of your life. I think that you're going to see that you could create a good balance with your life and work. Not only that, but it will make you a much better person overall with anything that you do.
Well, in the spirit of Memorial Day, Michael, is there, whether it be a story or a quote or just a general memory that encapsulate the spirit of this day from your time in uniform?
I think just for everybody out there, just to take some time to reflect and to know that, once again, kind of like what I said before, this is the best country in the world, and it's worth fighting for, and it's worth dying for. And if you guys know of any families or anybody have lost loved ones, just be supportive of them. And at the same time, acknowledge that their loved ones, although they have to pay the ultimate sacrifice, and nobody's ever going to replace that person, I could probably say with confidence that they did it willingly, and that to them it did make sense because they understood the higher purpose of things. I think Memorial Day is not a day so much to be sad, but more to celebrate the brave warriors that we have. Our country is very unique, John, like anywhere else in the world, because we gotta think of it this way. For the last almost 48 years, our armed forces are made of volunteers. Every single person took the step forward to serve. We live in the richest, most powerful country in the world, and we are defended by free men and women who willingly take the step forward.
Which is very rare.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing. It's something that no army has, and people could tell me, oh yeah, like any other country has a big army. Trust me, there is nothing more scary than to fight free men that love their land, and that's who we are. These volunteers, everybody there did it out of their own willingness, and we stay there out of our own willingness. So let's reflect this Memorial Day. Let's celebrate the lives of those brave men and women and for the sacrifice that they did. I think it's a sacrifice that they took willingly, and it just kind of just brings to ultimately like the one word that I believe describes all services, which is honor. Something that is honorable like that, like serving or dying for your country, makes it that much more special because it's so rare and it's so pure and it's so beautiful, and I do believe it's so unique to our military, because we're a military of encompass of the very best and of free men and women that join.
Michael, that's so well said. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on the podcast, share with everybody your story, and give us some great things to remember, to celebrate not only this upcoming holiday, but ultimately what we can carry forward every day. So really appreciate you coming on, Michael, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and the family here pretty soon.
Thank you, John, and God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
All opinions expressed on the podcast by the host and guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Olympus Wealth Strategies or Uptick Partners, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as a basis for any decisions. The investments discussed on this podcast may not be suitable for all investors and involve risks that should be carefully considered. Listeners are encouraged to consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Certain investments may require specific investor qualifications, which not all individuals may meet. Any funds or companies discussed are not a recommendation or endorsement. Guests in the podcast might be actual clients. but are not compensated to be on the show, and their experiences are not representative of all relationships, which might differ substantially.